Dear viewer students, this is the fourth video on the same topic, commencement address, a speech by Steve Jobs. Earlier in the last session, we discussed the second story of love and loss, how he established the Apple company and how he lost it to somebody, and how he started the new companies Next and Pixar, and after the great success of Next and Pixar, how those were bought by the Apple company, and that made Steve Jobs to return to his original company, Apple company. And there we came to know, we ascertained keys to reach success according to Steve Jobs. So with this recapitulation, let us move on to the third story narrated by Steve Jobs in his address. And the third story that Steve Jobs narrated, there we can see his attitude and aptitude to live a successful life. So what kind of an attitude and aptitude makes us to live a successful life? That is a very good lesson that we can learn out of the third story. That is the story of death and its expectation. And also there he makes us to be hopeful. He teaches us how to be hopeful and build confidence. And these two are the important things we have to learn out of this story. So let us begin this third story of death. So this third story of death is really a philosophical one. Steve Jobs is not a philosopher, he is not a poet, he is not a literature, he is not a man of letters, but he is just a designer, he is just an entrepreneur, he was a scientist. But he presents this story, he narrates this story so beautifully as if he is a philosopher. The story begins with a quote which is a philosophic one. The quote that impressed Steve Jobs when he was 17 years of age. That quote is, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you will most certainly be right." So this quotation came to his notice when he was 17. If you live each day as if it was your last, means as if it was your last day, someday you will most certainly be right. How? He was very much impressed with this quotation. And immediately after reading that quotation, he started to stand in front of the mirror asking himself, if today were the last day of my life, if today were the last day of my life, every day he used to stand in front of the mirror and he used to ask himself, if today were the last day of my life. So this changed his attitude and aptitude in life. This changed his attitude and aptitude in life. How it changed his attitude and aptitude? And it led to big choices. It led him to make big choices, and it led him to work hard. So these are the implications of this quotation. Then you see, this helped him to make big choices, And these big choices, when somebody makes big choices, there will always be some fear of failure. But when the death is waiting for us just after a day, when the death is waiting for us just after a day that meets us, if this is the reality, then what happens? All external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, all these things just fall away in the face of death. Because all these external expectations, pride, fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, all these just fall away in the face of death. Because the greater embarrassment or greater pain of death, greater pain than death is nowhere. And that's why if we live every day as if tomorrow I am going to die, how we will do our work? Because the time is very limited for us. We will have to work hard, we will have to fasten our work, lest we should waste the time. So the attitude changes and aptitude changes. Attitude changes and aptitude changes. How attitude changes? Tomorrow I am going to die. I never expect anything from that. Just for the sake of work, I work and complete it. Just for the sake of doing good things in life, just for the sake of achieving something good in our life, great in our life, we do it. We work hard. And the result of that is nothing to me. And if I fail in it, that never worries me. And such an attitude comes upon us, and such aptitude will have if we know that tomorrow I am going to die. And how this death keeps us alert in our life. That's very beautifully said by Steve Jobs in the third story. Why does he tell about this death like this? He tells about death like this because one fine morning at 7:30, he was diagnosed with a cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer one fine morning. And that cancer was a tumor on his pancreas. And that tumor, after the scan, it was found that it had some cells with the cancer, and that cancer was found to be incurable. The doctors were shocked with that, and they came to know the reality that it was incurable, and that truth they disclosed to Steve Jobs, that you are not going to live for longer days than 3 to 6 months, longer duration than 3 to 6 months. And that's why doctor advised Steve Jobs to set all the affairs right. Indirectly, doctor advised Steve Jobs to get prepared to die. But fortunately, the whole day is spent in such an expectation of death within 3 to 6 months. But fortunately, after a day is over, in the evening, a biopsy was made. A biopsy test was made. And after that biopsy test, doctor found it a curable one with a surgery. After that biopsy test was made, doctors came to know that this disease was not incurable, it was curable, but it required surgery. And when that reality was known to the doctors, when the doctors ascertained the fact that this cancer was a curable one with a surgery, even the doctors started to cry out of happiness. Even the doctors cry in jubilation. So, the same was reported to, informed to Steve Jobs. So, very naturally, Steve Jobs also became very relaxed and happy. So, death appeared to be a useful and purely intellectual concept to Steve Jobs. How? Steve Jobs said from that day onwards, every day he started to live in expectation of death, whether it may happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow or month later or 2 months later. So someday I am going to die very soon. So in expectation of that death, he started to live every day, and that made him to do the work so meaningfully. And he made the choice of the big choices as well. He made the choice of the work according to their importance. He never wasted his time. Then let us see. He did not go for operation for 1 year. As I said it in his briefing out of his life, he first preferred vegetarian diet and the Eastern treatment, with which he had a hope of recovering from that cancer. But after a year, it happened to be very much necessary to undergo an operation, undergo a surgery. So he got the surgery after a year. Usually, after that surgery was made, he lived for other decades also. But that taught him a great lesson. What lesson that taught? The great lesson that taught him is, see, nobody wants to die as early as possible, because everybody wants to live for some more days, because death is something, an unwanted thing. Death is something, an unwanted experience, and that's why nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to live for some more days. Even those who want to go to heaven, but they also try to postpone their date of death. They know that after death I am going to enter into the heaven, but still they don't want to die. But the reality, though we postpone our death, though we never want to die, though we want to live for some more days, but it is impossible to escape from death, because birth is accidental, but death is inevitable. Birth is accidental, but death is inevitable. Why we were born? It was accidental because of our parents. But death, after once we are born, that death is fixed. It is inevitable. Nobody can escape from that. If that death is waiting for you, if you know that tomorrow I am going to die or very soon I am going to die, you know the reality that you do have a very limited time. When you do have a very limited time, you will have to make use of that limited time. You have to utilize that limited time so profitably, so fruitfully. You have to make use of that limited time. So how do you make use of that limited time? You will make a timetable of your own. Accordingly, you will work and do the things better. And you never like to waste your time. And whatever you plan, you complete that plan within the stipulated time. So that is how that death teaches us to make a plan to work out all the things within that timetable, within that time stipulation. And also that death teaches to live your life. That death teaches to live your life. And here he says the single best invention of life. The death is a single best invention of life, because it is life's change agent. It is an agent that changes our lifestyle. And also it clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now the new is you, but someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. And also when the time is limited, if you know that, what you have to do, you should not waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Means, don't be under the impression of others' thinking. Don't be yourselves in others' thinking. Don't waste your life living in others' life, living others' life. You try to do your own and you try to think your own, and that brings you a good result. And also, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out of your own inner voice. Don't let others' noise, others' voice into your voice. And this is how this death teaches us. And then he gives one more example of success. Lastly, in out of this story, he gives one more example of success. That is, there was a man called Stewart Brands. He was publishing Whole Earth Catalog, a periodical. It was a publication, a Whole Earth Catalog. He was publishing that periodical when there were no printing facilities. There were no forward printing facilities. And that periodical was so popular for 35 years before the Google came. See, before the 35 years before the Google came, that periodical was so popular. And how could it be achieved by Stewart Brand? Because by that time there was no facility to bring out a book. There was no good printing facility to bring out a book in a beautiful way, in a beautiful manner. But still, he could run that periodical for many decades before Google came 35 years back, even prior to Google. That publication was made so beautifully. He achieved when there was no computer. There was no computer at all, but still he used to print that periodical so beautifully that it had been a Bible to everybody by that time. And one thing he remembers, on the final issue of that periodical Whole Earth catalog, on the back page, there was a line written, there were some words written, printed, and above those words there was a morning road, and beneath that morning road those words were written. The words were, stay hungry and stay foolish. Stay hungry and stay foolish. By mentioning stay hungry and stay foolish, these words, he tries to pass a message to the graduating students. What message he passes? Stay hungry means we should always be with a desire to do something, with a desire to know something, with a desire to go ahead and to make an attempt. Whether we shall be successful or not, it doesn't matter. The first thing is to attempt, first thing is to make an attempt, first thing is to have that desire. And that is the important thing that brings you a great success in your life. And stay foolish, because so it is also very symbolical, it is also very meaningful, because don't have any inferiority complex, don't have any obsession with failure, don't have any doubt in your success. Because if you fail, you will not be fooled. But don't be afraid that I shall be fooled if I fail in my attempt. Don't be afraid of being fooled, because you prepare yourselves to be fooled. And if you are prepared to be fooled, if you are prepared to be foolish after you fail in an attempt, nothing will happen. At least that attempt of failure will make you to go for another attempt. And this will make you able to do something and to make an attempt, and once the success will be in your hands. Unless you stay hungry, you never make an attempt. Unless you be prepared to face that to face that being fooled, you will never go for that attempt. And this message he passes to the graduating students by the end of this third story. With this, let us move on to discuss the whole commencement address with a few highlighting points. So let us recapitulate all the three stories together. What kind of highlighting viewpoints we can observe out of all the three stories? I just try to translate this story in Kannada. Here, ನೋಡಿ, ಈ ಮೂರನೇ ಕಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಅವನು 17 ವರ್ಷ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಒಂದಿನ ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕೊಟೇಶನನ್ನು ಓದ್ತಾನಂತೆ. ಆ ಕೊಟೇಶನ್ ಏನು? ಇಫ್ ಯು ಲಿವ್ ಈಸ್ ಡೇ ಆಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್, ಸಮ್ ಡೇ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ಲಿ ಬಿ ರೈಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನದ ಕೊನೆಯ ದಿನ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬದುಕಿದ್ದೇ ಆದರೆ ನೀವು 100ಕ್ಕೆ 100 ಒಂದಿನ ರೈಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಾಣ್ತೀರಿ ಸಮಾಜದಾಗೆ. ಇದು ಇವನು 17ನೇ ವರ್ಷದಾಗ ಓದಿದ ಈ ಕೊಟೇಶನ್ನು ತುಂಬಾ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಇಂಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಂತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಏನು ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿದ್ದಂತೆ, ಒಂದು ಮಿರರ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಂತು, ಇಫ್ ಟುಡೇ ವೇರ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಡೇ ಆಫ್ ಮೈ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಂತ ತನ್ನನ್ನು ತಾನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂತದ್ನಂತೆ, ಇವತ್ತೇ ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನದ ಕೊನೆಯ ದಿನವಾದರೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂತದ್ನಂತೆ. ಹಿಂಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಮಿರರ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳಕತ್ತಿದಂತೆ. ಎಷ್ಟು ದಿನ? ಫಾರ್ 30 years, 30 ವರ್ಷಗಳವರೆಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಕನ್ನಡಿ ಮುಂದೆ ನಿಂತು ಇಫ್ ಟುಡೇ ವರ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಡೇ ಆಫ್ ಮೈ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂತದಂತೆ. ಇದು ಅವನನ್ನು ಅವನ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸ್ತಂತೆ. ಏನೇನು ಬದಲಾಯಿಸ್ತು? ಇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಆಟಿಟ್ಯೂಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಪ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಡ್. ಅವನ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನ, ಅವನ ಅಭಿರುಚಿಯನ್ನು ಅದು ಬದಲಾಯಿಸ್ತಂತೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಇಟ್ ಲೆಡ್ ಟು ಬಿಗ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹಾರ್ಡ್ ವರ್ಕ್. ಇದೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಆಯ್ಕೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವನನ್ನು ರೆಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಂತೆ, ಅವನನ್ನು ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಂತೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಕಠಿಣವಾದ ಶ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಅವನು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದಾಗೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಂತೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಘಟನೆನ ಇವನು ಯಾಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇವನ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆತ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಇವನ್ನ ಹೋರಾಟ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಹಸ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಈ ಡೆತ್ತಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಈ ಡೆತ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇದೊಂದು ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಟೆಲೆಕ್ಚುವಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್. ಇದೊಂದು ಇನ್ವೆನ್ಷನ್, ಇದು ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇದು ಲೈಫ್ನಾಗ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಅವನ ಜೀವನದಾಗ ಆದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಘಟನೆನ, ಅವನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂತಾನೆ. ಏನಂದರೆ, ಅವನು ಒಂದು ಫೈನ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗು 7:30 ಅವನಿಗೆ ಯಾಕೋ ಹುಷಾರಿಲ್ದಂಗಾಗಿ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಗ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರು ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಓ ಇವನಿಗೆ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಐತಿ ಅಂತ. ಎಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರು ಅಂದರೆ, ಅವನು ಸ್ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವನ ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಕ್ರಿಯಾಸಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಎಂಡೋಕ್ರೈನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಮರ್ ಐತಿ, ಒಂದು ಗಡ್ಡೆ ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಕ್ರಿಯಾಸ್ನಾಗ ಐತಿ ಅಂತ. ಆ ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಕ್ರಿಯಾಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಎಂತ ಪಾಪ ಅವನಿಗೇನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಯಾನ್ಕ್ರಿಯಾಸಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯೂಮರ್ ಐತಿ. ಆ ಟ್ಯೂಮರ್ನ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅದರಾಗ ಕೆಲವು ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಕಂಡು, ಆ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು. ಅವು ಎಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಅಂದರೆ, ಕ್ಯೂರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ವಾಸಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಆಗದಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಗಳು. ಈ ಒಂದು ರೋಗ ಬಂದತಿ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಬಂದತಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಅವನು ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಅಂದರೆ 3 ತಿಂಗಳಿಂದ 6 ತಿಂಗಳವರೆಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬದುಕ್ಬೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಅವನು ಬದುಕಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. ಈ ಸ್ಟೀವ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಒಬ್ಬ ಇನ್ವೆಂಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಇವನಿಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರು ಅದನ್ನು ಮುಚ್ಚಿಡದೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ನೋಡು ನಿನಗೆ ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಇದೆ, ನೀನು ಬದುಕೋದೆ ಕೇವಲ 3ರಿಂದ 6 ತಿಂಗಳು ಮಾತ್ರ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀನು ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ವ್ಯವಹಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಏನೇನನ್ನು ಸೆಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದೈತಿ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಗ 3-4 ತಿಂಗಳೊಳಗೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಂತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ನೀನು ಸಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಆಗು ಅಂತ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರು ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಂತೆ. ಸೊ ಇವನು ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿ ಅವತ್ತಿನ ಇಡೀ ದಿನವನ್ನು ಕಳೀತಾನೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿದ ಆ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಆ ಇಡೀ ದಿನವನ್ನು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಕಳೆದಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್. ಆದರೆ ಫಾರ್ಚುನೇಟ್ಲಿ ಆ ಇಡೀ ದಿನವನ್ನು ಕಳೆದ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವತ್ತು ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಯಾಪ್ಸಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಅವನ ದೇಹದೊಳಗೆ ಒಂದು ಲೈಟನ್ನು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಯಾಪ್ಸಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಆಗ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತಂತೆ ಏನಂದರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಸೆಲ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ನ ಸೆಲ್ಗಳೇನದಾವಲ್ಲ ಅವು ಇನ್ಕ್ಯೂರಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅಂದರೆ ವಾಸಿಯಾಗಲಾರದ ಸೆಲ್ಗಳೇನಲ್ಲ, ಅವನು ವಾಸಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇರೋಂಥ ಸೆಲ್ಗಳವು. ಅದು ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಜರಿ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ವಾಸಿಯಾಗತಿ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾದಂತೆ. ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಾದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರು ಸಂತೋಷದಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೊತ್ತು ಚೀರಾಡಿದ್ರಂತೆ. ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಅಂತೂ ವಾಸಿಯಾಗುವಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ ಐತಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗಿ ಸಂತೋಷ ಬಾಷ್ಪವನ್ನೇ ಸುರಿಸಿದ್ರಂತೆ. ಸೊ ಇವನು ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಾದ ಮೇಲೆ 1 ವರ್ಷ ಸರ್ಜರಿಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಕೊನಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಸರ್ಜರಿ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ವೆಜಿಟೇರಿಯನ್ ಡಯಟ್ನಿಂದ, ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ ಡಯಟ್ನಿಂದ ಮತ್ತು ಈಸ್ಟರ್ನ್ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ನಿಂದ ನಾನು ವಾಸಿ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ 1 ವರ್ಷ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಆದರೆ 1 ವರ್ಷ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ನೆಸಸರಿ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋ ಆನ್ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಆರ್ ಸರ್ಜರಿ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ಜರಿ ಆಗಲೇಬೇಕಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಗ ಅವನು ಸರ್ಜರಿಗೆ ಒಳಗಾಗ್ತಾನೆ. ಸೊ ಹೀಗೆ ಅವನು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸರ್ನಿಂದ ಆಚೆ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ. ಆಚೆ ಬಂದ ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಡೆತ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಅವನಿಗೇನು ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಇದೊಂದು ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟೆಲೆಕ್ಚುವಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಡೆತ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಭಯಪಡಿಸಿ ಸಾಯಿಸೋ ಅಂಥದ್ದಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಎಂಡ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಅಂಥದ್ದಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಭಾಳ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಆದಂಥದ್ದು. ಅದು ಯಾಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ಲು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅವನು. ಯಾಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ಲು ಅಂದರೆ, ಈ ಜೀವನದಾಗ ಯಾರೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ನಾಳೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಸತ್ತು ಬಿಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ಬಯಸಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಕಾಲ ಬದುಕಬೇಕು ಅಂತಲೇ ಡೆತ್ತನ್ನು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾದಷ್ಟು ಮುಂದೆ ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕೇ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಾವಷ್ಟೇ ಯಾಕೆ, ನಾವು ಸತ್ತ ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವರ್ಗಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು, ಸದುಖವಾದ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡವರು ಕೂಡ ಇರೋಷ್ಟು ದಿನಗಳು, ಇನ್ನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ದಿನಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಬಯಸ್ತಾರೆ ವಿನ ಬೇಗ ಸಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾರೂ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗಂತ ಇದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಭೂಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರಿಂದ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಯಾರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇದರಿಂದ ಎಸ್ಕೇಪ್ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಒನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಗೆಟ್ ಬರ್ತ್, ಒನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಬಾರ್ನ್, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಶ್ಯೂರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೈ. ಅಂದರೆ ಬರ್ತ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟಲ್. ನಾವು ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತಾಗಿ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಟುಬಿಟ್ವಿ, ಆದರೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಸಾಯಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಡೆತ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ನೆವಿಟೇಬಲ್. ಬರ್ತು ಆಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟಲ್ಲು, ಆದರೆ ಡೆತ್ತು ಇನ್ನೆವಿಟೇಬಲ್. ಆದರೆ ಆ ಡೆತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮಿಂದ ಏನೇನೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸನ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬಲ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಇವನು ತುಂಬ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ಲಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಇದೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತದಂತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಇರೋ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಟೈಮನ್ನು ಎಚ್ಚರಿಸ್ತದಂತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಆವಾಗ ನೀವು ಹಂಗಾರೆ ಇರೋ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಫ್ನ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬದುಕಬೇಕು, ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬಳಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಪಾಠ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತದಂತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪಾಠ ನಾನು ಕಲಿತೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅವತ್ತಿನಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಯಿತು. ನಾನು ನನ್ನಿರೋ ಟೈಮನ್ನು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಆಯ್ಕೆಗಳನ್ನೇ ನಾನು ತಗೊಂಡು ಹಾರ್ಡ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬಂದೆ. ಇದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಟಿವಾರ್ಟ್ ಬ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡನ ಒಂದು ಸಾಧನೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಸ್ಟಿವಾರ್ಟ್ ಬ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡು ಓಲ್ ಅರ್ತ್ ಕ್ಯಾಟಲಾಗ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕೇಶನನ್ನು ಹೊರಗೆ ತರ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಅದು ಗೂಗಲ್ ಬರೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ 35 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಅವನು ಆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ತಂದಿದ್ದ. ಆದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ಲಾಗಿ ತರ್ತಿದ್ದ. ಆವಾಗ ಯಾವ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಪ್ರಿಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಷಿನರಿ ಅಂತ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನು ಕಲರ್ಫುಲ್ಲಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂಥ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟಿ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಂಥ ಮೆಕ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಅವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಹೊರಗೆ ತಂದಿದ್ದ ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕೊನೆಯ ಅವನ ಫೈನಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರ ಬೆನ್ನು ಪುಟದ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಪೇಜ್ನಾಗ ಒಂದು ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಖಾಲಿ ರೋಡು ಮತ್ತು ಆ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಖಾಲಿ ರೋಡಿನ ಕೆಳಗೆ 2 ಫ್ರೇಸಸ್ ಇದ್ವು. ಸ್ಟೇ ಹಂಗ್ರಿ, ಸ್ಟೇ ಫೂಲಿಶ್ ಅಂತ. ಈ ಸ್ಟೇ ಹಂಗ್ರಿ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಟೇ ಫೂಲಿಶ್ ಅನ್ನುವ ಈ ಸಾಲಿನ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಜುಯೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಇವನು ಒಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜನ್ನು ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಏನಂದರೆ, ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಾನು ಏನಾದರೂ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ತುಡಿತದಲ್ಲೇ ಇರಬೇಕಂತೆ, ಒಂದು ಡಿಸೈರ್ನಲ್ಲೇ ಇರಬೇಕಂತೆ. ಮತ್ತು ನಾನು ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕಾದರೂ ಕೈ ಹಾಕಿದರೆ, ನಾನು ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಕೈ ಹಾಕಿದರೆ ಅದರಾಗ ನಾನು ಫೇಲ್ ಆದರೆ ನಾನು ಏನು ಇನ್ಸಲ್ಟ್ ಒಳಗಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಫೂಲ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಭಯ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳದೆ, ನಾನು ಫೂಲ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೂ ನೀವು ತಯಾರಾಗಿದ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ, ನೀವು ಅಟೆಂಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಒಂದು ಸಾಧನೆಗೆ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಎನ್ ಅಟೆಂಪ್ಟ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ನೆವರ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಅಟೆಂಪ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಫೂಲ್ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕೂ ರೆಡಿ ಅಂತ ಯು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ವ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಅಟೆಂಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಸಕ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ವೆರಿ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಮೆಸೇಜನ್ನು ಇವನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಇಡೀ ಈ ಕಮೆನ್ಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಥೀಮ್ಸ್ನ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣ್ತೇವೆ. ಸ್ಟೀವ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲಿಯರ್ ಬರ್ತ್ ವಿ ಕೇಮ್ ಟು ನೋ. ಡ್ರಾಪ್ ಔಟ್ ಇನ್ ಬರ್ತ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್ ಔಟ್ ಇನ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್, ಡ್ರಾಪ್ ಔಟ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನ್. In profession also he was a dropout. Self-taught lesson out of his own life experience and his early life of rags. He was very poor in the beginning, that he used to collect the cork bottles and he used to sell them for 5 cents and for one a good meal he used to walk for 7 miles to Hare Krishna temple. All that you remember. Calligraphy and Macintosh, the first animated computer he produced. Starting of Apple company, losing it to someone, new company started, returning to Apple company. Pancreatic cancer he suffered, and waiting for death. That is a very strange experience, the rare experience he underwent. The thought of death changed his attitude and aptitude. Expectation of death led to hard work. Stewart Brand's example, message of stay hungry and stay foolish. All these we could get across this commencement address. So, out of this commencement address, the students could be inspired, and they came to know even the death shall be an inspiration. Even death shall be an inspiration. And also students will get inspired by Steve Jobs, who suffered from cancer, but he achieved to be icon in the world. Though he was suffering from cancer, he never bothered about it. He did his duty, and he became a great man in the world. And the principles and profit of success he presented in these stories were very impressive. And if these are made an attributions to one's own life, no doubt one will be on the path of success. With this, I will put an end to this presentation in the video. Thank you.